You're listening to the Current Plays Podcast, Season 3, Episode 3, Dune Imperium Uprising. Now please welcome your hosts, Jordan and Thomas. And welcome back, glorious listeners. Today we're talking Dune Imperium Uprising. Dune Imperium Uprising, which is a re-implementation, an update from Dune Imperium,
Hmm.
published in 2023. Uprising is by Direwolf Games and Legendary, and designed by Paul Dennen. Yeah, if you're in this space, you probably know this game. It was
Yeah.
extremely popular when it came out. Actually, funny story about this one. A couple of years ago, we were at Breakout Con, and I was chatting with Jeff Frazier. Yeah, nice, nice. I was chatting with, for those on the podcast, Thomas is wearing a Breakout Con t-shirt.
Yeah. I stood up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Podcast. Yeah. Sorry.
Also, for those of you watching on YouTube, I did have to shave my beard for work, and I look terrible, and my wife hates it, and I hate it. But so I apologize to our viewers, our listeners. You're good. So anyway, we were at Breakout Con 2 years ago, and I was chatting with Jeff Frazier. If you don't know who Jeff Frazier is, he's the co-designer of the Fox Experiment. And I mentioned our podcast, and he dropped a question on me. He said, "What was your favorite game that you've discussed on the podcast this year?" And I immediately froze up trying to think of like what games we had played that year, right? And so I look like a deer in the headlights, and he looks at me and he goes, "It's okay to say Dune Imperium." I was like, "Yeah, I think it was Dune Imperium."
Yeah. And rightly so. Like and even like this last play, just it's so good. It's fun,
Yeah.
right? Like it's well put together, right? Yeah.
Very. Yeah. So this game is a mix of deck building and worker placement in a really fascinating way. Uh I don't know if it was the first one to do this, but it's got to be one of the first ones to do it quite this way, right? So, like a typical deck builder, you start out with a starter deck, and that's 10 cards, and you draw 5, the magic number, and the cards have, like in a lot of deck builders, they have an ability and sort of like a currency value. You know what I mean? Like a value that's going to let you buy new cards. But the way that this one does it is you can either play it for its ability, or you hang on to it, and at the end of the round you're going to reveal all the cards you didn't play, and that's what you use to buy new cards from the gallery. No, what's the word I'm looking for? The
Shop.
market.
Yeah. Market. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In addition to the abilities on the cards, there's also symbols that represent locations on the board where you can place your workers, and you can only place your workers there if you play a card that has one of those symbols, which makes for a really dynamic and interesting decision space when you've got your hand of cards, and which ones do I play this? Because I want to play this for this ability, but I want to hang on to this for the, reveal step is what it's called at the end of the phase.
Yeah.
And but I really need to go to this space on the board to get that action spot. And this is the card that has a symbol on it. So like, what do I do? What do I use this card for? Which just, you know, perfect, perfect.
It adds like a three-dimensional sort of decision-making tree you got to make, right? Okay, am I playing this card because it's the only one in my hand to go to these types of locations, which I really needed to go to one of those locations, and unfortunately, this great card is the only one that can get me there, right?
Right.
And then oftentimes what you find is like, okay, this card has a really good ability, but it also has a really good the final step thing where you're getting your shot points or whatever for your market buying power, right? Which I think it's influence, market influence. Um
Persuasion.
Persuasion,
I
that's right.
kept calling it influence, but I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
actually persuasion.
So it's like, okay, I really want to play this card because I'm going to get some good stuff and get some good ability, but I don't want to play it because I want to save it for the bottom persuasion number that might be two or higher, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it gives you, a victory point, which are hard to come by, right? Like this game's all about scoring those victory points and reaching, it has a threshold for victory points, right? So you're like
Hmm.
trying to get there first. And if you're spending on that card and not using it for its victory point, then are you being as efficient as you could? Maybe, but maybe not, right? So, and that I found that out really concisely this play was that I was not efficient at all when it came to the victory points. But buying power, the persuasion, I was like, yeah, many turns I can buy whatever I want.
Right.
But that doesn't
Or
mean
whatever
anything.
I want.
Whatever you wanted, yeah. But it didn't mean anything because I went nowhere on the victory point track, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'd like to say, oh, given a few more turns, maybe I could have, nah, but no. I was efficient
Yeah.
at the wrong thing. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so the end game conditions in this game are pretty cool. There's not only a threshold, like you were saying, for the victory points, which by the way is 10.
yeah.
It's not high. It's 10 points. So if at the end of a round somebody's reached 10 points, then the game ends and whoever has the highest number of points wins. Also, there's only 10 rounds in the game.
Yeah,
So, if you don't reach that point threshold by the end of round 10, whoever's got the highest number of points wins. And points are very scarce. There are four faction spaces on the left side of the board, and each faction space has two available points. So there's a track of something like 6 or 8 spots. I can't quite remember. I think it's
yeah, yeah,
something like
yeah.
six. Anyway, um, when
Maybe
you
seven.
reach
Yeah,
the when you reach the second spot, you get a victory point. And when you reach I think it's the fourth spot,
yeah,
then you get what's called an alliance token if nobody's beaten you to it, right? And the alliance token goes to the player who gets there on that track first. But if somebody surpasses you in influence with that guild, then the alliance token is going to move over to them. And you can go up and down on these influence tracks too. So if you drop below somebody, you're going to lose your token. And if you drop below that second space, you're going to lose that victory point again, right? And if I didn't say it, those alliance tokens are worth a victory point.
yeah.
So there's a total of 8 points available on that track. It's not likely that one player is going to get all 8 points. You could get 4 points out of that track, or I should say those tracks, right? Because there's the four different houses. You go up two on each. That's four victory points. And that's sort of the strategy I went for. And then I
Yeah.
managed to get two of the alliance tokens. But the other points come from there are some rare cards that you can get points based on certain conditions. So in this game, I had one that was pay 4 spice and you get a point. But spice is very rare and it's very valuable.
Is
So
it?
yeah, yeah. We'll get into that. But
For sure. Yeah.
the other way is each round you're going to flip what's called a conflict card. And it goes, I'm trying to think of the exact ratio, but there's one conflict one card, and then there's, I believe, 5 conflict 2 cards and then
Interesting.
4 conflict 3 cards. And the 1, 2, 3 represents increasing conflicts as you go through the acts of the game, right? So the conflicts are basically battles or wars that you fight amongst each other, the players, right? So at the end of the round, whoever's gotten the most power into the conflict area is going to potentially receive rewards from this conflict card. Now, the conflict one cards are going to have, maybe a few Sistari, which is the currency in this game. Um,
So Solari.
Solari, jeez, keep mixing them up. Sistari
Yeah.
is the
Concordia.
Concordia. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. You had it right on the day.
Yes. Oh man, just not on the podcast when we're
Yeah,
recording
yeah,
for everybody.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, but basically the rewards get higher as you go up the conflict chain or whatever. And the conflict 3 cards often will offer boosts on the influence tracks, which could get you points, or straight up offer you points, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And what's new in Imperium Uprising over the previous Dune Imperium game is if you can get sandworms in the conflict, they double your rewards on those conflict cards. So if you get, there might be one of the conflict cards can potentially give you 2 points. And then if you
Yeah.
have a sandworm in there, like 4 points, that's almost half the points you need in the game. If you
Yeah,
can manage to win that round, right?
because I believe there's one that, yeah, like gives you a point, and then you can also convert one of the resources to another point or
To
whatever.
buy a
So then,
point.
like, then you
Yeah.
double it, you get two of those points, and then if you had the resources, you get two, you know. So that 4 point swing, that's a massive swing in a game where 10 is the threshold that you have to cross over to start the end game, right? So
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Uh, it, it, it- I, what I like about this one too, is how scarce the resources are. And so those resources, like you mentioned, are the spice, and then Solari and water. So it's very thematic to Dune, right? So and it's water is tight and spice is tight. I laughed saying, "Oh, is spice tight?" Only because I ended up creating a spice engine, but then never took it anywhere. So, but yeah, like spice is another one, and everything seems to be there's never enough of
Yep.
anything. You're always fighting for those resources so that you can do, the almost the better actions on the board because some of the better actions on the board will give you better resources, right? And usually those better resources are more draws, and or more troops that you can put out in the board so you can fight more in those combats, right?
Hmm.
And that's a fascinating thing too. These combats are really neat because you basically have like a staging ground, and then you have the actual battle, right? So whenever you get troops, they would go to the staging ground, and then from there you'd move them into the battle area. With some exceptions, depending on the location you go to get those troops. If it's a combat location, you can when you get those troops, you can get them directly to the battlefield rather than the staging area. But I love this concept because so anything in the battle, which makes sense, it's done at the end of that round. Those troops go away. They're no longer available to you, right? So they come back to your pool, I guess, of resources that is not in the game.
Right.
Um, but anything in the staging stays there from round to round, right? So you can really like build up a force, and you're trying to oftentimes win those battles. And I say oftentimes because sometimes second place is the better reward. So sometimes you want to come in second place. But oftentimes, if you're trying to win that, you just want to slightly win because you don't want to
Hmm.
overpay for more troops in the battle than you need, right? Because you do that and you have three more, like you literally want to win those battles by like one or two power, like just squeaking by more than your opponents, right? Because that means you save more stuff back for future battles, right?
Yep.
Because the amount of times I've done this where I've gone in on like a level 2 conflict and went, oh, this is a really good reward. I'm going all in. And then the level 3 conflict on the next turn turns up and it's one of those 2 victory point ones. And I'm like, I don't have enough. And
Yep.
there's you have two workers in this game. You have the option to unlock a third one, if you can pay for it at some point. But having those two workers, if you're trying to get an army and then get it to your staging ground and then deploy it to the battle, there's like one option where you can go to actually like have a fighting chance of doing that if somebody is already, has a bunch staged already and just needs to bring them over. You have to do the staging and the bringing it to the battle. Like you're
Yep.
probably not winning that combat. Yeah.
And that's like a common theme in this game. So going back to the resources just briefly, there's normally one or two spots where you can get a resource for free, like for a worker placement action, essentially, right? But you only get one or two of those resources, right? And
Yeah.
then there'll be two more spots on the board where you can get more resources, but you have to pay for them with other resources. So this balance of like you're trying to build up, and then you might actually get a windfall of resources from conflict rewards or maybe a good card combination or something, but then it goes so quickly buying other resources that you need. And then troops are one of those things.
Yeah.
So there are quite a number. There's a few, I think four combat spaces or something, but only one or two of them gives you, again, one or two troops. So, but there are some spaces that give you more troops, but they're not combat spaces. So you have to like you would go there just to build up your garrison and
Yeah.
hold back for a future battle. And many times in this game, you have to go, okay, you know what? I'm not going to participate in this battle, or maybe I'm going to put one troop in the battle just to get some reward, right? But I'm going to hold back until I can build up for a bigger turn. But then there's the one space where you can get five troops, and it is a combat space, but also costs you five spice, which is, well, let's say if you're not Thomas, it's really unusual to like maybe once or maybe twice in a game you could possibly get that five spice. And then you have to have again a card with the symbol to go to that space,
Yeah.
and that action space is in one of the guild spots where it's more rare to get those symbols in the cards in the market. So,
And here was my downfall, right? I had this spice generation, so that's great, but all the locations where I could have put that spice to use as the, spice being the cost, I couldn't get there, right? So I didn't have the cards with those locations on them to get there, right?
yep.
And that's like when you talked about the faction one, it's really interesting because the way those you rise on those factions is by going to those faction locations, with the exception of sometimes it's a bonus um, reward for something, winning a combat or some areas on the board might be allow you to bump up on a faction spot, right? But like I said, okay, so those locations there. You start the game with two cards in your, I think what you start with 10
10.
cards, maybe 10
Yep.
card deck that allow you to go to those faction spaces. And when you play one of them, you only claim play it once and then it gets trashed. So it's out of your deck for the rest of the game, right? So, if you use both to go into those locations, say it's the same faction, well, you moved up two in that one faction, which gets you a victory point, great. But now you're down one of those cards, it's gone. And you got to cycle through your deck to get back that card before you can go back in the faction. Unless, of course, you buy another card that has the symbol for those locations, right? But those can be rare. And I think one came up during our game that had all four factions on it. And then there were a few more cards that had singular factions you could go to, right? And so I had one card that allowed me to go to the Bene Gesserit faction locations, um, but I needed to be able to go to the Spacing Guild
Yeah.
locations. Couldn't get there. Didn't have that. And then I bought later in the game one of the ones that allowed me to go to the Emperor track. And I don't know what that faction was, but the Emperor's faction
It's
area.
the Emperor faction. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I bought one card there, but it never cycled through before the end of the game, right? Um yeah, and that
Yeah.
that that was it. I didn't see any Spacing Guild ones, and then the other ones is the Fremen. Those location ones never came up in cards that I was willing to buy at least. And then some I just didn't see. I don't think I saw a single Spacing Guild one come up. I don't know if you had bought one or if none came up at that point, other than that one that had all four.
Yeah, well, I think there were two that had all four, but I snatched them both up like
Yeah,
as soon as I could. And then there was one that did let me go to a triangle space, which is like your spice harvesting spaces, and then and the shipping guild.
yeah, yeah.
So, and oh man, another thing, I guess I didn't really notice it the first couple of times I played this game, but this game I did really notice the thematics of
Hmm.
this game. So, like there's so many. I'll give a few examples that I noticed, right? If you want water, you have to either go to the Fremen, which are typically free or low cost, right? Um, and the Fremen, they've got what are the suits called?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I forget
Ah,
now. The Dune,
yeah.
yeah,
We
water
both
suits. I don't
love
know what
this
they're called.
IP,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. It's a great IP. Yeah,
um I can't remember what the suits are called, but the suits that recycle the water, they've got the like stores of water, they give it freely to the people, well, to a degree, but there's that. You can get water from the shipping guild or from the emperor, but you got to pay a high price for it, right?
yeah,
Uh, Another one, like the spice, the shipping guild is all about the spice, right?
yeah,
And that's how you can get huge troop numbers. You pay the shipping guild a bunch of spice, and they're gonna bring in a bunch of troops for you, right? But that again is they can give you troop numbers. The Fremen, they have cards that let you do combat tricks. So you maybe don't have as many numbers, but they're they're desert power, right? They've got all the sneaky combat tricks.
yeah, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
just like little things like that were designed so well in this game, where I think Paul Dennen must have been a huge fan of this IP. I think.
Yeah, you really the Fremen cards are really neat. Yeah, because it's like that. They really play as the guerrilla tactics, right?
Hmm.
Where you have like even in like the Emperor spots that you can go to will give you lots of Sardaukar. I can't remember how they pronounce the Emperor troops, but you can get a lot of troops that way by going to the Emperor's locations, right? Um, but the cards from the Fremen, it's almost it's an unseen aspect to the battles, right? Because not only when you get into a battle, so you add in your troops to the actual battle location. So you can look down at the board and go like, okay, Jordan has four troops. I got five troops in here. The troops are worth, two combat power each. But then at the end of your turns, right before combat, you're placing out and you're showing, your cards, and some of those cards might have combat symbols which add +1 to your combat, right?
Yep.
And if you have some of those Fremen cards, held back, and then all of a sudden, okay, look at this. Here's the combat trip. Boom. I have four of these combat symbols that you have no way of knowing that they would be in my hand. Yes, okay, you get to see them purchase those cards at some point, but you don't know when they're going to cycle through the deck, right? So you're trying to like, do you overpay and put more troops, and then all of a sudden, your opponent doesn't have those cards in hand, and now, like I said, you've overpaid for the combat. You
Yep.
could have kept more back, and then now it's harder because now you got to bring him to that garrison, that staging area, and then you have to, bring him into combat on a future turn. So you're trying to manage that, right? I was often looking over at what collection you had in your garrison to be like, okay, he's only got two troops in there, so I don't have any. I'm not that far behind, but I could be, depending. So then there's these intrigue cards too that you can, work to get. And if you have those intrigue cards, sometimes they provide some bonuses. So sometimes you get one and you just want to hold on to it to be like, it could be something nasty. So, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's just like some sort of end game condition that gets you a point.
Yep.
But you're gonna hold it there and threaten it, just to have a bit more security, right? So, yeah, there's layers to this game for sure, right? And I dig that. I had a lot of fun. I definitely this time around I tried something different. I was like, you know what? What if I don't unlock that third worker? Can I make this work? And it definitely put me behind on the curve of not having as many actions as you or the AI opponent that we were facing. But at the same time, it had benefits too, right? Because then I was always able to end my turn before you were. So then I had first pick of the market at all times, right? So it was like, okay, this card and this card works to my strategy, so I'm going to pick those up. And then oftentimes what happened, you'd be like, I wanted that card kind of thing, right? And I was like,
Yep.
yeah, I know it's a great card. That's why I bought it, right? And then you don't know what's coming up next. Maybe it's a better card that comes up, who knows? But it could be worse. And then all of a sudden you go to buy and you just have trash on the board too, right? So, there was a benefit to do that as well. And I honestly think with this one specifically, there is many different aspects to getting a victory, right? You could do a two worker strategy if you combine that. If I had to tighten mine up with a better use of that spice, maybe I could have skyrocketed more on the tracks there, or just on the victory point area, just through using that spice more rather than hoarding it. I knew
Hmm.
it was an issue. I was hoarding it all, but I just didn't have the right cards to spend it, and aiming at that too, which really comes down to a deck building to a degree as well, is being able to prune that deck in a efficient way, which
Yep.
I still haven't managed that amongst deck building as a whole. I still struggle with that as a mechanic. Um, but yeah, it's fun to play, and it's fun to tinker and figure out what you can do or what you should have done differently. That play. So it was I had a good time trying something new and failing at it, but it was a good. I had fun doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you getting to the market first all the time, I definitely felt it. So
Yeah.
I had picked up some early cards that were Spacing Guild cards, and they both wanted other Spacing Guild cards in your hand at the same time, right? So there's
Hmm.
one that it forced you to discard a card from your hand, but if it was another Spacing Guild card, then you got to draw two cards. And not having cards in your hand means not having a good reveal turn. So not being able to buy the valuable cards in the market, not being able to have those combat tricks at the end of the round. So it's kind of a big deal. So my Spacing Guild cards wanted other Spacing Guild cards, and they would come up, and then you would snatch them right away. And I'm like, stop it. So then I started going for like a lot of Fremen cards started coming up. So I'm like, okay, well maybe I can switch gears and take some of these Fremen cards. They also like other Fremen cards, you know?
Yeah.
So they even have like an ability called Fremen Bond, which wants you to have other Fremen cards in play to get effects. Uh, but I think by the time that came around, it was too late in the game.
Yeah, and that was the other interesting aspect, right? When you play two players, you add in um like a bot character that has its own deck that it runs through, right? And it acts as this game is neat because it gives you like, I don't know, 10, is it like 10, 7 to 10 different enemy uh bots you can play against that are
Yeah, it's quite a few.
characters in the yeah, that are characters in the, Dune IP. So we were playing against Baron Harkonnen, right? Or Harkonnen, whatever. But yeah, so he was a rather difficult bot. And he ended up taking the game, but I really like how the difficulties of these bots, it almost adds like another timer to the game. Not only do you
Yeah.
have this timer of the 10 rounds, but then when you add in this bot, it grows in power and then it continuously grows and grows and grows and is not only blocking spaces, but if it's earning the right points, um, it could get ahead and get away from you guys, and then
Mm-hmm.
which it did to us. It
Yep.
got away from us, and then we're sitting there on our last turn, go realizing, oh no, we can't stop it. Yeah, this is
Yep.
this is it, right? Um, and then that was it. That was game. It crossed that threshold, and we lost to the bot, right? But yeah, just and I lost horribly. I think I had like 2 points at the end. I had 1 point, and then I had a victory point condition hidden card, one of the intrigue that gave me another point, right? Um, but I had a second card that was going to give me a third point if I had completed it, right? And part of completed that card would have given me two more points. So I had like all these plans that I just didn't time properly, and then this thing just took it away. And
Yeah.
just having that extra symbol to get to those Spice Guild faction areas that would have made all the difference, right? It would have meant winning more of those combats, earning more points that way, and then, it being more efficient, I guess, right? But, live and learn, I
Yep.
suppose, right? So maybe we'll try an easier bot the next time. But in the past, we've done easier bots.
Yeah, I think we
Um,
did the like second hardest, not second hardest, the second easiest, I guess.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
not the easiest, but the next level up on our first play. And then this time we were like, do we do that? Do we go easier? Do we go harder? And then we I think we rolled on it, right?
yeah, yeah,
And we got the harder bot. And yeah, I remember the first time we played
yeah,
and it was very close. Like all three of us were vying for the win that turn,
yeah,
and I think I pulled out ahead in the end. But
yeah. I
this
was,
game, it
I
just
remember
ran away.
being frustrating with that game too because I had an extra point coming until the bot took my spot, and I
Yeah,
was like, "Oh, that cost me a point, right?" And when it's that close, that can be frustrating. But that's the nature of, kind of a bot player, right? Is that you never know, and it stings both players at different times, right? So I found this time around because I was changing up a strategy, the bot never affected me other than I had an ability that allowed me to gain some resources if people were going to my spots, and I was
Yeah.
banking on the bot going to my spots, and it never did. And it was a very frustrating experience going, oh, now it's working against me by not doing things I want it to do now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, very, very, very neat game. I enjoyed our play of it this time for sure, and yeah, I want to play it again. Yeah.
The bot system, by the way, is really good. Like it's a deck of cards, you flip the card and it's going to tell you where they go. And there's a few conditional spots or like cards with conditions on them where it makes sense. Like and so like if the spot's already taken, you just draw another card, right? Or it'll be like here, place a spy and then draw another card. Or depending on how far into the game you are, you might go to the like lesser valuable space or the higher, more valuable space. So, but it's just that easy. Flip a card, you put their thing there, and then everything else, like they're gonna gain resources the same as you, they're gonna gain points the same as you. It's like just like there's no crazy special rules for the bot. It plays like a human player plays.
Yeah, yeah, and which is so impressive for how easy it is to run it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I said it last night. I think every time we play this game, I'm like, why don't we play this game more? Because just the design of it is so good. The strategy is so good. The decision spaces are so good. Uh, even and if you're like a political player at the table, I feel like you could do that too with the combats and yeah, and the intrigue cards, right?
Yeah, I never
Uh,
thought of that, but you're right, absolutely. You can bring in some sort of negotiation tactics to those combats. You know, let me win this one. You can have the other one. I'll do this. I'll make sure I don't go to this space. You know, if you want to add that sort of level of and
yeah,
thematically it works. I mean, that would be a
right.
very Dune way of thinking, right? So,
And then you
yeah, yeah.
stab them in the back because
Absolutely,
that's what
because
you
that's
do.
what I would do. Yep, 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 yep. Oh, I
Yeah.
said I was going to do this? No, not doing it.
But yeah, absolutely. This game's top notch, one of the best. And I don't know why we don't play it more. Well, just because there's so many other great games to play, but
That's exactly it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to playing this one more for sure.